Hi there, and welcome to the Kingdom Sexuality podcast. We're Paris and Alana, friends who have a heart for intimacy and long to uncover God's truth and design for sexual freedom within marriage. Welcome here. All right, so welcome back, everybody. This episode is kind of special in that it is our very first episode with Rusti. So,
Yay!
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 So exciting.
Hello, everybody.
In case you missed it, we are adding another team member to our Kingdom Sexuality team, and that is Rusti. And so we're so excited to have her as a part of our team, just in like going through this and growing and realizing that, Paris and I can't do it all.
Yeah.
And that even though it's like maybe like humbling and hard to admit sometimes, it's so relieving when you have someone who can take things on and you have confidence in them. So we're really excited to have Rusti here. And so, hi. So welcome here.
Welcome. Thank you so much. It's
first of many.
It's so wonderful to be here. I feel like I'm on repeat saying I'm completely in awe of how God just orchestrated this out just to fall in line so easily. And it was just like, it was just the easiest decision. It seemed like, we're out of milk, so we got to go get milk. And it's like, okay, it just all fit in line so wonderfully. It was great.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Out of milk. I love that.
I love that. Before we go forward, Rusti, because I love this story, especially from your perspective. Can you share how God just brought this all together? Can you share this story? I want this to be permanently on this show.
Yes. And I'm so glad you asked that too, because I got really interested because I remembered hearing you guys and listening to an episode in December of last year. And you guys had mentioned how you wish you had somebody who was just a little bit older, who maybe had just a few more years under their belt that you could go to for questions. And it was your episode that you interviewed Jody, and it was on singleness. And so I was still listening because I had just found you guys. I was binging as much as I could. And I heard you guys mention that, and God immediately just laid it on my heart. And he was like, reach out to them. And so I was like, I'll be the crazy person who's like, hey, you don't know me. Feel like I'm a million miles away from you guys, but you guys want a buddy? Let's be friends. So I did. I reached out. It was in December of 2020. And you guys were immediately like, thank you so much. Nobody ever asks if we can, partner up with you. They offer to pray, they offer, or they thank us for what we're doing. But having somebody say, hey, if you need to go through the hard stuff, if you need somebody to bounce a really tough question off of, ask me. And so I was just like, well, let's do that. And here it was now a year later, almost to the day. I was listening, and you guys were talking about how things had just started to shift, and you felt like you couldn't give as much as you wanted to give because just times of life, just life was coming in, and it was too much to handle. And I thought, I'm going to reach out again and ask if they need me to do anything. And here we are. So just, you want to join us? And I was like, yeah, I want to join you. Let's do this.
Yeah. The timing was just like such a God thing. Like Paris and I had just had a conversation about, Paris was like, you know what? I don't know, Alana, like, what do you think? Like, should we try and bring someone new in? Do we add another person to this? And we were like, I think we should. We're like, how on earth do we go about that process? Like, I remember talking to my friends about it and being like, I think we want to add another person, but like, how does that even happen? Like, how? Like, I honestly didn't know. And so it just was like a couple days later. Yeah.
I will hand this person to you. Don't you worry about it. That's awesome. That's how he does it.
And I'm pretty sure I like screenshotted your message and like sent it to Paris right away.
I was like, whoa, that's our answer.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that. Because, that's just encouragement for any time that you feel that little nudge and you think, I'm not going to do that. What if that might make me really uncomfortable, or that might make them uncomfortable. But no, just to hear that you guys were just as excited as I was, and that it obviously was, it was God's hand on us. So yes, cool. Obey those little nudges that the Holy Spirit's giving you. By all means, do it.
Yeah, love that.
So to start us off too, I was thinking, we were interviewed on a podcast, Dan Purcell's Get Your Marriage On. So that episode hasn't actually aired yet. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but so he asked us at the beginning of the episode if we had like a funny story from our honeymoon that we could each share. So Paris and I shared ours then, but I thought it would be really fun to hear yours if you have one, Rusti.
I think this is like the best icebreaker ever.
Right? So fun.
It is really good. And I can't wait to hear your guys'. I want to hear what your guys' are too.
Oh, we have some good ones.
So, my husband and I, we went to Disney World for our honeymoon, and
how many years ago was this?
We've been married 17 years.
Okay.
So,
woo. That's amazing.
Man, that makes you feel old to say that, but how? But yeah, 17 years ago. So it was kind of hard. It's kind of hard to even remember exactly everything that happened on our honeymoon. But one thing that just immediately jumps to my mind is we were in our hotel, and my husband, Josh, was like, well, you want to go down and like hit the hot tub? It was beautiful out at our hotel at night. They had, Christmas lights everywhere, and because it was December, and it was just beautiful at night out there. And so I was like, yeah, let's go hit the hot tub and just relax. And so we went down there, and we were thinking, in our minds, we were going to have this really romantic honeymoon night out there in the hot tub, maybe get to just enjoy one another. Nope. There was a very inebriated gentleman who was in the hot tub who thought it was really great to have company. And he was very excited to see this couple come down to the hot tub. And so we had some really great conversations with him, and he was just very happy to join our date night and interject himself into that. So that was it. We just didn't end up really as we thought it might happen. So I guess, just one of those things that all too often happen on your honeymoon, where you think things are going to happen a certain way, and no, they absolutely do not.
Yes.
That was not the romantic evening that we had planned, but it's 17 years later, and I have not 1 ounce of doubt in me that if I were to ask my husband the same question, he would be like, oh, it'd totally be that dude in the hot tub.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
We will never forget him. So he is a honeymoon memory that will forever be in our mental shelf. We can look back upon.
So good.
So great.
So good. Okay. So there you have it. Rusti's icebreaker for you guys. I actually don't think you guys have heard Alana and I's yet, which is super funny. So you'll hear those at a later date. But we're just really, really excited to gift you guys. And I say that intentionally because Rusti is going to be gifting you her testimony and her sextimony today. Alana and I, when we first started this, we shared that, and I think we should redo it in the future now that we're doing Rusti's. But we are going to be just sitting down with Rusti and literally having a conversation about her testimony, and just sitting together as friends and sisters within Christ and hearing this out. And you guys, Alana and I have heard Rusti's testimony. It's amazing. It's going to bless you guys. Like we said, we really were praying for someone who was able to offer an entirely different component to this ministry than Alana and I could with experience, and Rusti's delivering that. So you guys get excited. It's so good. Okay, Rusti, we just want you to take the floor.
Okay. All right. So my testimony starts way back whenever I was a little girl. Sex was not talked about in our home one bit. It was just something that we understood was a bad thing. It was something bad to do before marriage. And that was the extent of the discussion that was had. My parents split whenever I was 2 years old. My relationship with my father is very much a broken one. He moved states away and we never saw him. My mom remarried, and she remarried a wonderful man who stepped in, and he checked all the boxes that a good stepfather should. Mm-hmm. However, it wasn't until I was much older and married that I realized the extent of the damage that was done to my heart, still just knowing that my father had walked away from me and made me feel like I was an expendable thing, you know, not something worth putting the effort into seeing or to spending time with. And I was am a very joyful person. That is my go-to emotion, I guess you could say. And so I was very good at just sweeping that under the rug and saying, no, everything's great. I'm wonderful. I'm great. But of course, as it does, anything that you kind of sweep under the rug like that, it inevitably bubbles up and shows itself later on as you are growing. So I found myself as a teenager looking for somebody to fill that void. And I found myself wanting to be loved desperately by a man. Yeah. I just needed that. I felt like I needed somebody to show me what that forever kind of love looked like, because I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted it. So I got into my first relationship, my first real relationship, whenever I was 16. Mm-hmm. And that boy told me he loved me. We were going to get married one day. I was thrilled because that was everything that I wanted. And as most teenage relationships or first relationships do, it started to fall apart. Things started to happen. He decided that, you know, maybe a relationship wasn't the best thing for him. And I started picking up on that. And I did what I think a lot of girls in that situation who maybe came from a background like mine or were looking for somebody to fill that void like I was would do. And I slept with him. I did the one thing that I knew I didn't want to do. I had such strong conviction about it because I was still going to church. And I was terrified that afterwards I was like, okay, I'm going to hell now. I am condemned for all eternity. There's no going back from this. And to make matters worse, a few days later, he broke up with me anyway. So I was completely crushed. I gave this guy, I literally gave him everything that I thought I could to keep him. And once again, I was made to feel like I was a very expendable thing. I can just be thrown away, not worth putting in the effort to stay around. So that did so much trauma to my heart. And a year and a half later, I found myself in a position where I was still healing from that, still completely hung up on it, unable to get past it. And one night I was hanging out with my girlfriends and she was like, let's go to my sister's house and hang out there. So we did. We pulled in the driveway and she was like, oh, Josh is here. And I said, who's Josh? And she turned around and she looked at me and she said, Rusti, don't get excited. He's got a girlfriend. And so I was like, okay, I get your point. So we walk in. I was like, don't worry about it. We walk in and there I see the most beautiful specimen of a man that I had ever seen was sitting on the couch in the living room. And I walked in and I looked at him and I just thought, oh my goodness, he is beautiful. And so I was like, I know why she gave me that warning then. Seeing that he was, presented to me as something that was very unattainable at the time, I was like, whatever. I completely made a fool of myself that night. At one point, my friend dared me to do the worm. And so we went into the other room and I laid on my belly and I was doing the worm in this other room. And I turn around and here comes Josh walking through the room and he literally steps over me because he was going to the bathroom. And I just put my head down in the ground. I was like, yep, that's it. Sealed the deal right there. That ain't ever going to happen.
That's super funny.
Oh, goodness. So that night ends, life goes on. And a couple weeks later, this ex who I have not talked to in over a year all of a sudden pops up one night hanging out with all my other friends. And I realize how I'm still hung up on him. Maybe we're going to get back together. What's going to happen here? He expressed interest, and I was just a mess in my mind trying to figure out what is going to happen here, what's going to go on. And my friend had told me before about my husband. She was like, he's a really good Christian guy. You don't know him because he was actually homeschooled, so he wasn't in like the high school scene. So you haven't seen him around school or anything like that, but he's a super good Christian guy. And I thought, well, that's just like the cherry on top of the cake. That's exactly what I need. And just a few days after my ex had kind of bubbled back to the surface here and was floating around in my mind again, I remember I was driving and I was so sick of feeling so much pain and brokenness. And I cried out. I literally screamed in my car to God as I was driving. And I said, I don't want to do this whole dating thing. I'm not the kind of person who wants to date around. God, I just want to find the man I'm supposed to marry and marry him. And then I said, why couldn't it have just worked out with Josh? He would have been perfect. And because that's what you do when you're 17 and you're heartbroken. Yeah. And you just, I found myself running and literally throwing a fit to the father that I felt comfortable throwing a fit to at that time. And it was so funny because it was only a few days later, I headed back over to that same friend's house. And whenever I walked in the door, she was on the phone and she shushed me and she was talking on the phone, and she hangs up and she starts jumping up and down and screaming. And she said, that was Josh. And he just called me to get your number. He's going to call you and ask you out. And that was the beginning of that. I was like, woo, I didn't scare him away. He apparently is okay with my weirdness.
I know. I love the idea. It was probably like, hey, that girl who was doing the worm, like, can you give me her number? Like,
her weirdness, no pun intended. There we go. I caught him. Yes, and that totally took the pressure off of it because, okay, he's seen me like at my worst, because I think that night I was in pajamas. My friend in the car on the way in, she was really frustrated because her hair was in her face and my hair had been up in a ponytail all day. And so I took my ponytail holder out, I gave it to her. So my hair was all crazy from being in a messy bun. I was in pajamas and doing the worm. And I was like, he has seen me at my lowest of lows, probably. What a great place to start.
No, that's awesome.
I'm okay with this. But yeah, so we were together. He has seen me through and been a huge part of God showing me how he can redeem a lot of that brokenness that I went through. And he has been an excellent example of what it means to be loved by somebody and not have to worry about them walking out on you. He has literally seen me through my worst, and I have going through that redemption process and trying to figure out what walking through this healing with God looked like. He got to see me do some really ugly things, and I hurt him in ways that I know that, we've had to work through and things like that. But never, ever once did I ever think he's going to leave me because of this, because I knew that man will never leave me. And so going back to your guys' testimonies, because I re-listened to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So Paris, you talked about one of the scriptures that you prayed over your marriage was about in Joel, about God redeeming the years that the locusts had stolen.
Yeah.
And so one of the scriptures that I have prayed for years and years over our marriage, over my family, has been Proverbs 6:31. And that talks about how whenever you see a thief stealing from your home, you catch him and you demand a repayment of 7 times whatever he's stolen. And so I prayed that over myself, over my family. And this last year, we just had our 7th child, our 6th little boy. And whenever God spoke to my heart and was like, let's, do this baby thing one more time. I got one more for you that I want you to raise me up one. And so it was then that he brought to my mind, and he was like, this is number 7. This is the 7th boy. You missed out on that love. You had that void for all those years of having a man who would love you unconditionally. And now you have 7 men in your life, because I have 6 boys and my husband. And so now I have 7 men in my life who I know without a shadow of a doubt will offer that unconditional love anytime I need it. And it's nothing that could ever be broken or taken away from me. And it just puts me in complete awe of God and how faithful he is to his word and his promises. And he did that for me. And he literally took that and gave me 7 times back what I was missing all those years.
Ugh. That testimony always brings me to tears. Like, that is the testimony of our God right there.
Yeah,
like absolutely. Made manifest in your life personally, like a gift for you. And I just want to say that, like, God is that personal with us. And I feel like it's very easy for us to dismiss that in our lives and kind of put those walls up and think, no, God is not that personal, but he absolutely is. And that's a whole undertone of this entire ministry. And I'm just so stoked that you shared that, because that just feeds into what all of this is about. Like, God is that personal in our lives, in our marriages. That's amazing.
Yeah. He's so good. And it's nuts to me, because you think, it's not really, scripture isn't really that literal, but then God does, and he shows up something and he does something like that. And you're like, okay, no, that's to the T. You did exactly what you did. And so, but yeah, don't be afraid. Anybody who hears that, don't think, if I have a broken relationship with my father, I'm going to have 7 children. Don't be afraid of that, because, we can present that with, just, father figures in your realm that can love on you, or things like that, because I've been blessed with that oftentimes along the way. And in this journey too, I've had really incredible father figures in the church and things like that who have stepped forward and loved me and helped me in that process. But yeah, don't be afraid of it. But that's just how God showed that off to me, and showed off that way to me, because he knew I would accept it, and that would be something that would be very, very much a blessing to my heart.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Rusti, I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that. We are going to cap this off, you guys. Here, you're going to hear so much more from her in the future, which we're really, really excited about. So Rusti, I want to end this episode kind of like a cliffhanger leading into future episodes with you. Something that really caught my attention outside of this amazing gift that God gave you with your verse and your 7 men in your life. I love that. But something else that really caught my attention is how you just felt like you were easily replaceable, and you felt such a void in your life without having that physical father figure there. And God has redeemed you. He has redeemed you through that, which I think is amazing. And I just want to ask for you to maybe give a word of encouragement on that, because I know that we for a fact have listeners here that feel that same void of hopelessness in them. And having someone on the show that's come up from the other side, I just want to ask, what is something that you could speak over them? They're in a period of waiting or in a season of healing, and, telling them that God is present. What would you say to that person?
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest and the most impactful thing that God did for me in the interim while I was going through this was I made it a point to often ask him, what do you think of me? Tell me what you think of me. Give me scriptures, give me people in my life to pour into me that tell me who you say I am, God, because I need somebody to fill that void. Mm-hmm. And God gave me the most beautiful thing. I'm going to try to say it without crying, because it is one of the most treasured things that he's ever done. And he showed me this picture of me with looking at my daughter's face. She looks very much like me, Abigail. She looks very much like me. And it was like her face cupped in these huge, strong men's hands, looking down at her. And he said, Rusti, you are precious to me. And just having that picture of thinking of me in all those years that I felt completely lost, and where I had nobody like that to love me, knowing that he was there that entire time and how much he loved me. It is so important to go to him and say, fill this. I need you, God, to fill this, because I'm going to go to the world and I'm going to look for places to fill it otherwise. So I need you to fill this up for me. And that is without a doubt, the most important thing. Go to him and let him heal you. Let him see that brokenness and let him fill you up, because he will. He's not going to let his daughter go out in that world and get broken even more if you go and you seek him.
No, that's beautiful.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Rusti. We're so excited to bring you more of Rusti in episodes to come. Questions, Q&As, all that good stuff. We'll have so much more of her for you guys to listen to, and I'm just excited to even get to know your story more through this as well, Rusti, because it's beautiful and it's such a gift. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I can't wait to be back.
Hey friends, thank you so much for hanging out with us as we dive deeper into meaningful, godly intimacy, tackle the hard questions, and embrace truth while we're at it. We're also on Instagram at Kingdom Sexuality. You'll find our Instagram handle below in the show notes, where you'll also see any other resource links we may have mentioned in today's episode. As always, our hearts are to cultivate deep community and freedom with you guys, and we cannot wait to continue this journey alongside you. We'll see you in the next episode.